we remember the story, or maybe some of you don't even know. Anybody not read Chaitanya Charitamrita? Anybody not read it? No? You've not read it? Okay. Yes, so there's a story within that. Yeah. No, this is Bhagavatam, sorry. Bhagavatam, Canto 5, sorry. And you have Jada Bharat, a self-realized soul. He's forced by a king to carry a palanquin, but he's walking not so well because he doesn't want to step on the ants. So it's a really rocky ride for the king. Jada Bharat's carrying it, and the king's scolding him. And finally, Jada Bharat, his whole life, I don't think he even spoke. He was just, just trying to avoid bad association and remember Krishna. And he was enlightened too, so, he saw things nicely. And then he started to speak to the king and instruct him. And part of his instructions was, as he was trying to explain what about this experience of lust. And he describes the forest of enjoyment. The living entity goes into this material world, or like into a forest, to exploit and gain, fruitive gain. And what does he meet in the forest of enjoyment? And it describes many things. One of those is he gets plundered by tigers and jackals. And so this plundering by tigers and jackals, it's like he has a lamb there that gets plundered by tigers and jackals. So the lamb is like the wealth, the hard-earned wealth that the person's done. And the wife and the kids, like the tiger and the jackal, where they plunder his wealth. I need this now, honey. Kids are going, I need this now, Dad. And he becomes kind of morose. He also describes in the forest of enjoyment, he meets biting mosquitoes, which are described as like envious people. Always backbiting, things like that. Also we got a dust storm happens and his eyes are blinded. It's described like that with when one's wife is at a particular point in the month and the lust for her gets huge. And then you have mirages. He thinks he's going to quench his thirst, and he thinks he's going to get some water there, but it's actually mirage in the desert or the wherever. And his wealth gets plundered by government men. I know somebody who's taxed 40% of his income. 40%. That's almost half of your income the government takes. And it's one doctor. When you make a good amount, they take 40% at that level. Yeah. Plundered. And then he has to climb big mountains, and he's got insufficient footwear, so his feet are damaged. And the mountains are described as that which you need to have your false prestige. I gotta be a somebody, and I just can't not have a nice wedding ceremony for my daughter and give a nice dowry, otherwise what would people think? And he doesn't have the money for it, so he's greatly taxed. All this trouble just for false prestige to stay with it in society. Bitten by snakes or crushed and left lying unconscious, devoid of knowledge. Falls into a dark well. This is described as like family life. Falling into the dark well, no matter how hard you scream, nobody can hear you. And being afraid of roaring lions. Being afraid of roaring lions, he makes friends with herons, cranes, and vultures. The roaring lion is death coming. So he takes shelter of these bogus gurus and sadhus who say, yes, you don't need to surrender to God, you are God, or whatever. You just say this and you're fine. Everything's good to go, just put your money there and you're good. No problem, time of death. Whatever. We get a lot of that in the West. I don't know, India probably got even more. Anyway, falling into a mountain cave is described as like getting an incurable disease. Miseries of family life, because of all these miseries from family life as well, then one takes shelter of the only pleasure he gets for all his miseries, just a little bit of sex pleasure. So this lust continues up to the point of death. So then he gives the solution. Nice to have a solution. I was chastised for always being negative, so here's the positive. There's a solution to all this. Sense objects take up the sword. So then he's explaining all this to the king. The king's becoming very sober and realizing, wait a minute, maybe my journey, where the way I was going, the way I was driving myself, is not going to be fruitful after all. So then Jadabharat sees an opening in his heart and says, the sense objects take the sword of knowledge, sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy and cross to the other side of the ocean of nescience. So this knowledge is the critical point here. Taking up the sword of knowledge, remain for some time and are annihilated when the body is again mingled with earth. We are simply different transformations of the earth, meaning the body. Different bodies and capacities are simply transformations of the earth that exist in name only. For everything grows out of the earth, and when everything is annihilated, it again mingles with the earth. In other words, we are but dust, and we shall but be dust. Dust. Everyone can consider this point. So everything material, of course, we're the spirit, but all this material is just different forms, juxtapositions of atoms, you know. That's it. It's just really all just the earth, parts of the earth, just dust. However, although the universe may temporarily appear to be truth, it ultimately has no real existence. The earth was originally created by a combination of atomic particles, but these particles are impermanent. Even the elements of the universe only last up to 1 pararda. Pararda is half a Brahma's lifespan. Everything just only lasts so long. Since this universe has no real ultimate existence, the things within it, shortness, differences, grossness, skinniness, smallness, bigness, result, cause, living symptoms, and materials are all imagined. They are all pots made of the same substance, earth, but they are named differently. The differences are characterized by the substance, nature, predisposition, time, and activity. You should know that all these are simply mechanical manifestations created by material nature. So kind of explaining in summary a really wonderful big perspective of what this material dimension is. And then he goes on, what then is the ultimate truth? The answer is the non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. It is devoid of the combination of material qualities. It gives us liberation. It is the one without a second, all-pervading and beyond imagination. So there's a nice verse with this, 1:2:11. Varanti tattvam vas tattvam yajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdite. Those who know the absolute truth call this the transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman Paramatman Bhagavan. So absolute knowledge then is the thing to get. And sorry, lost my place here. What happened? Hare Krishna, here we go. So how to get this realization? You know, what do we do? Then Maharaj Rahugana Jadabharat explains to Maharaj Rahugana a nice verse, 5:12:12. Rahuganai tat pasaniyati nachejaya nirvapanam garidva Chandasanaiva sutapta viter, something like that. Vina mahatpada vajobhishekam. My dear King Raghugana, as long as one does not have the opportunity to put on his entire body, to bathe his entire body in the dust of the lotus feet of a great devotee, he cannot realize the absolute truth. Yeah. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing brahmachari, celibacy, by following strictly rules and regulations of household life, by leaving to the forests of vanaprastha, or accepting sannyas, or submerging himself in waters in the wintertime, performing severe penances in this way, or in summer, surrounding yourself with scorching fires in the heat of the sun. Many ways to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth reveals himself only to those who have attained the mercy of a great devotee. So this is his solution, is by serving a great devotee, getting knowledge and serving a great devotee. This is a solution to the problems. And who are the pure devotees mentioned here? Prabhupada writes in the purport, or maybe I think there's a verse, in an assembly of pure devotees there is no question of discussing material subjects like politics and sociology. In an assembly of pure devotees there is discussion only of the qualities, forms and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is praised and worshipped with full attention in the association of pure devotees. And the association of pure devotees, by constantly hearing such topics respectfully, even a person who wants to merge into the existence of the absolute truth abandons this idea and gradually becomes attached to the service of Vasudeva. Jai. Simply by associating with exalted devotees, anyone can attain perfection of knowledge, and with the sword of knowledge can cut to pieces the illusory associations with this material world. Through the association of devotees, one can engage in the service of the Lord by hearing chanting, Shravanam Kirtanam. Thus one can revive his dormant Krishna consciousness, and sticking to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, return home, back to Godhead, even in this life. So that's Maharaj's, Jadabharat's, in summary, his instructions to Maharaj Raghugana, who then really just totally applied them, fell at his feet, beginning of it all, and was very eager to learn, and got the instructions, and I assume, applied them. So this is the solution. Recognizing our precarious situation. Spirit souls we are, full of knowledge, eternal and blissful. But what happened? Somewhere along the way we became perverts. And a pervert doesn't necessarily mean, like you may have seen in the movies, like a weird guy. But we're all kind of perverted in the sense that we are not, we've forgotten our real identity. And we're trying to reawaken that, to be again who we really are. So the misidentification, or the trying to be Krishna or imitate Krishna, that's the pervert. That's the perversion. It's a perversion. It's not natural. So the way we go about this practically, we understand the big picture. Okay, this perversion program will lead me to this forest of suffering. They call it the forest of enjoyment, but it's really just a forest of suffering. Every step of the way, it's precarious, danger at every step. Brahma bhuvana loka punar vartino arjuna mam paitara konteya punar janma navidyate. From the highest planet, the material world, down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeat birth and death take place. That's what you get. Birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So, by getting knowledge, we know that this is not smart to be a pervert. It's not smart to lust, to serve our greatest enemy. I use this analogy that at least the beginning stages of saying no to lust, it's been our master for such a long time, so it's become really strong, and we've fed this master lust so much. You know, we massaged his body, we just did everything for him, and he's super powerful by giving him so much service. I mean, he's super, he's king, just like, you know, Indra getting all those blessings over the years and those sacrifices for him. But then Krishna comes along and says, don't give these sacrifices to Indra anymore. And Indra gets real mad. So similarly, serving this, what was our master lust, and saying that, you're no longer my master, I've got this other master, his name's Krishna, and I'm just not going to serve you anymore. Then lust is like this huge fire-breathing dragon. I mean, like huge. Do you have Zelda here in India? Zelda? Zelda, the guy with the cartoon character with a sword? Oh yeah, you have this Zelda guy. He's a small guy. He's got a sword, and he fights the huge dragon. Cartoon thing in America. The famous guy. Anyway, he's just a little guy. The dragon's huge. He's got this sword of knowledge. And he defeats this dragon. The sword of knowledge, right? It says that in the sword of knowledge. Right? Fights the dragon, wins. So, my experience with this, you know, it says spiritual life is easy for those who are determined. So if we just are fully determined, this huge dragon that ruled you, you were like a puppet in his hands, then becomes like a little chihuahua and runs away within a matter of seconds. And when I was, you know, I'll use an analogy, like if you're in the ring, you have boxers in India, you know what boxing is, right? Boxing? You have people fighting in a ring? Yeah? Okay. And, you know, we go through life, sometimes you might get knocked down, right? And when I got seriously knocked down in my life, my dad came to me and said, you know, I got really knocked down in my life once. And he described the situation, and it was hardcore. And then he said, my father came to me, and he said, the only difference between a fighter and a prize fighter, and the prize fighter is the champion that wins all the time. The only difference between a fighter and a prize fighter, only one difference, is the prize fighter always gets back up. Right? That was the knowledge that I needed to hear. I thought about it, yeah, all right. So then I just made a point of always just getting back up. I don't encourage anybody to see karmi movies, but in my old days, anybody see the movie Rocky? No. Yeah, okay. Rocky, right? He gets knocked down, and he's like, go ahead, hit me again. Bam, right? But he always got back up. This is how he won, right? So this is the mood that we have to have as aspiring Vaishnavas. 100% determined. The second you're not 100% determined, lust has a foothold. There's a cartoon strip. It's like a few cartoon strips. So the first cartoon strip is in the desert. It gets really cold at night. So the guy's with camel going across the desert with his whatever. The camel carries his stuff. So he sets up a tent and he spends the night in the tent, and the camel's outside. That's the first picture. Second picture is the camel's got his nose in the tent. And the guy's like looking at him from the sleeping bed and going, it's okay. And then the next strip is the camel's got like 2 feet in the tent. He's like, it's okay. And then the next strip is the camel's in the tent and he's out in the cold. Right? You follow that? Did you get that? Right? So eventually, when you let lust in, You're not 100% determined. Lust gets in. And lust doesn't like, lust isn't fair. Okay, I'll give you an inch, but then you just leave me alone. No. He might say that, but that's not how he operates. He'll take an inch, and then his only job, he's only got one job, just to take that second inch, or a foot, or a mile. That's all he's going to do. He's not going to do anything but that. He's not going to work a deal with you. He's not going to say, oh, okay, you gave me an inch, and I'll leave you alone. No, not at all. This person has no heart at all, no heart, zero heart. Is not your friend. Totally not your friend. In any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's described that the mind, just as one may capture animals, let's say you're a hunter, that's described like this in the books. So you might capture animals, but the intelligent hunter knows that they could escape at any moment. So he stays vigilant, even though he's captured the animals. So similarly, one should never make friends with the mind. Never put your faith in the mind. Always stay vigilant, all the way to death. Stay vigilant with the mind. Yeah. So, can't trust. Never. The mind. So, this is an important point. So the way to actually conquer this lust is have that mood of a prize fighter. Always get back up. You know? Always just make that point 100% determined. And that huge dragon that just ruled you for so long, it just becomes like a little nothing. Just like it's described, this ocean of material existence becomes like a little puddle and a calf's footprint. Why is it a calf's footprint? Vishwanath Chakravarti describes because it's a calf's footprint because it's auspicious. Spiritual life's auspicious. So he describes. Anyway, so I'm going to end with just reading Prabhupada here, and Tamal Krishna Goswami are having a little chat. Actually, Tamal is just reading a verse and Prabhupada's commenting on it. Same verse we got here. And Prabhupada's going to go into, more practical steps as to how to regulate the senses. Yes, regulating. How can you regulate the senses? Not by artificial means. The yoga practice, of course, is meant for controlling the senses, but nobody can practice in this age perfectly yoga. Neither one can control the senses. But this is practical. This is practical. Just like our sense tongue, we want to taste very palatable dishes. Now you supply a palatable Krishna prasadam. You forget going to the hotel immediately. This sort of process is in Krishna consciousness. We don't simply prohibit that you don't do this, but we supply something which is engaged by the senses and the mind, the intelligence, so that you do not require to be engaged otherwise. Positive and negative. Simply negative is no good unless there's positive engagement. So there is no question of negative. Negative is already there. If you are taking nice foodstuffs, automatically you give up obnoxious and nonsense foodstuff. But if I say, don't take this foodstuff, this is not good. And if I don't supply you with nice foodstuff, naturally you are hungry. You will have to take whatever is there. Just sometimes you have seen the dogs. They are eating stool, their own stool. So I was taking this. One of my students told me that in the last war in the concentration camp, the human being, they also ate their stool out of hunger. You see, there was no food, so they ate their own stool. So when there is no opportunity of good occupation, one must be satisfied with nonsense occupation. So this Krishna consciousness is so nice that one who is occupied with this movement, he cannot go anymore to so-called lusty and other nonsense occupation. So it's a nice example of practical regulation of the senses. Whole Iskcon is all about that. Engaging your mind, body, and senses. Right? What do we got? Like intellectually, this knowledge is that you can find on the planet for intellectual stimulation. For emotional, there's nothing better than a kirtan. Party dancing away, right? And what else we got? And for like bodily, you got prasadam, so forth and so on. What are the needs? Emotional. Anyway, it's all there. It's up there. Thank you for tolerating me. Any comments or questions? Oh, come on. Boo. You okay? Everything okay? What's the best way, what?
To recover from bewilderment.
To get free of bewilderment? Yeah. What's the best way to get free of bewilderment? It says 7, what?
Sometimes you see some sense object, immediately get bewildered.
Yeah. Right. Well, one verse comes to my mind with that same word in it, pretty much, is 7:28. Yeah. Krishna Yesham tu antagatam papa jnananam punyakarmanam. Something. What? Oh, te advandvo nirmukta bhajante mam javrata. So that last verse, right? One who has acted piously in this life and in previous lives, so being good and having your sinful actions completely eradicated. In other words, you follow those 4 regular principles strictly, and you're a good person, and becomes free from the dualities of delusion, becomes free of this bewildering program, and engages in my devotional service with determination. So I think what I was thinking without thinking it through is being engaged in devotional service with determination is actually the only solution to everything.
Yeah, we are in that line, but for momental line, for time period takes away bewilderment.
Time takes away bewilderment?
No. In the course of time, bewilderment is for some more time. We get involved in that bewilderment.
For some time one gets involved in the bewilderment? Yeah, it's just like for, let's say, a brahmachari. We're not allowed to look at women. So sometimes, I don't have women in my van, I travel around, and, you're a little careless, and you notice a billboard with maybe a female body on it, right? And you're unconscious. But the second you become conscious, you're actually looking at the billboard. If you're unconscious, what can you do? But if you become conscious that you're doing this, immediately, if you want to remain a brahmachari, you must, without an option, stop immediately once you become conscious of it. That practice one has to take up every time. Otherwise, you know what's going to happen. You have the knowledge, you dwell on these sense objects, lust develops. And you know where that leads. I remember when I was little, my dad tossed me out the house. It was time for me to take to Krishna consciousness. And it was Krishna's arrangement for you to join a Gurukul. And I remember Krishna giving me sight of my precarious situation, about where people are at and where the world's at, and I was just going, Hare Krishna. I don't know what I was chanting. I was definitely calling out God's name, and like a child calls out for his mother, just And I thought, how am I going to be able to keep this up? Right? And then I chose to not keep it up and become ensnared by Maya. So now with Prabhupada's knowledge, I know how to not get snared. So when one thinks one must take shelter of the holy name, must take shelter of devotional service, must take shelter of the holy name, must take shelter of Krishna in this way, through the guidance of the spiritual master, one must, and there's not another option. And by doing that, and then when we have the thought, how am I going to continue with this? This is so intense. How am I going to be able to continue with this? One should then know that we're committing the, we're being inattentive in our chanting. In other words, it's an unnecessary thought. That's the way I do it. And you'll find that when that energy is intense, you can get a lot done for Krishna. Like when I'm out in the middle of nowhere, I haven't been to a temple in 3 weeks, and I'm distributing books after books, and that energy gets really strong. I used to be, well, I guess I do get scared still, but I then go, because I've experienced this, every time that happens, tons of books go out. So I don't necessarily try to avoid it anymore. It's just dovetail everything for Krishna service. And that becomes every now and then an enormous amount of energy or anxiety or whatever. You just dovetail for Krishna, you can get a lot done for Krishna. A lot of mercy. It's wonderful. So it's not something to avoid. It's just like I used to river raft, you know? And sometimes it's mellow. And you're thinking, I want it to be rapidy. So you paddle real hard to the rapids. And then when it's rapid, you're like, oh, when's this going to chill out? But the river rafter that's been doing it for 30 years, when it's chill, he's like really, empties the water from the thing, he's happy. And then when it's really rocky, he's like happy too, you know? He's in the moment, you know? So, using everything as fuel in Krishna's service, and being nicely situated in Krishna's service, taking shelter of Him. And you'll find, as long as you do that, Krishna will never give you too much. Just like before an exam though, if you haven't done your homework, and then you just have to crash course the night before, you know. I'm personally, I prefer just being steady, because it's so much, I don't like this huge swings. You know? So just being steady in your sadhana, then that energy doesn't get so much like that. Is that okay? Alright. By regularly taking shelter of the holy name, every moment, like, okay, it's on now, chanting, I can chant Hare Krishna now, I can read some more, I can chant some more. Pretty soon you just get totally nectarian. I mean, you probably already know this more than me. Any other comments or questions? But Krishna, it will never be too much. Never. 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 It actually will always be perfect. Just look at it. This is another thing that helps me a lot, is to always just go, this is perfect. You know how like you go, oh no, not this now, or I wish it was like this, or oh goodness, oh, you know, whatever. Instead of doing all that mental energy to just make you tired, just go, this situation is perfect. This is a perfect gift from Krishna. A perfect gift from Krishna. I was distributing books. Oh yes, go ahead.
If we are here, we feel very good. But we go outside, then again we in contact with the Lord. We see how one can be overcome this problem.
Yes, so you're saying, here we feel really good and we go outside and then lust comes back and we come in contact with the material dimension, because you're well protected here, right? I mean, here everywhere you look is Krishna, pictures of Krishna, devotees of Krishna, everybody's talking about Krishna. And you have all the programs are nicely done. And so yeah, It shows the importance of visiting the temples and associating with devotees. We should know our limits. Know our limits. I mean, when I was, not saying you're new, but when I was new, I'd go out and distribute books for about an hour and a half. Books would go out, but after that hardly any would go out. So I learned, okay, after about an hour and a half, I need to go back to the temple and wash some pots or something. And then gradually build it up. 2 hours, 2.5, like that. You know, and I think authorities generally guide people that way. I mean, you know, whatever. At least that's the most optimal way. It might not be just like that, but you know. And out there, the intelligence, with the knowledge, the intelligence has something to work with, right? So reading the books. Whether we like it or not, we really need to read the books. I'm not saying you're not, but it's like a force field you develop with your strong sadhana. But when that gets weak, it's like a battery, you know, these things wear out, right? I mean, they 100% work for a while, but if it doesn't get charged, it's gonna die, or get weak, or whatever. So, charging is our sadhana. So when you go out, chant when you're out, really good, really loud. If the mind's really strong, chant loud. I don't mind seeming like a fool out there. Sometimes I'm mumbling myself around here. Probably when I was new here, people thought I was a little crazy. After a while they realized, oh, he's just memorizing slokas. Okay. So, you know, just whatever you got to do to stay Krishna conscious. Reading, I notice some people go out on books and sometimes they're not so effective. So they just sit down and read for a while. And then they get charged and then they can distribute again. Or whatever. What do I do when I go out there? Chanting the holy name. You know, I'm always distributing the books, so, you know, there's a picture of Krishna right there, right? You're reminded. And you're talking about Krishna. So whatever way to help you remember Krishna. And so a lot of people when they're new, I'm not saying you're new, but, you know, just... What?
This book can also help us if you are outside.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Association. It doesn't have to be new. Sometimes when I just feel weak, I'll go, let's say 2 devotees are distributing books, and I'm way over there all day, and I feel a little weak, then I'll just go to this devotee, and I get stronger, you know, just by association. So, you know, serving together out there helps a lot. I'm sure there's more I can share. That's all that's coming immediately to my mind, though. No. Remembering just that Krishna will take care of you, but you got just absolutely, no matter what, stay determined, stay away from those 4 things, and stay engaged in Krishna's service sincerely. You look like a very sincere person, so you know, keep your sincerity, you know, because if you're sincere, that's all you need is sincerity. That's really it. You sincerely apply yourself, Krishna will take care of you. One thing, here's a nice verse. Prapano, sakrit prapano, sakrideva prapanonyas, tavasmati tyajate, abhayam sarvada, tasmai, dadamye tatamma. Krishna says, maybe it was Ramachandra, said, it is my vow that if one even once sincerely surrenders unto me, saying, Krishna, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and sincerely prays to me for courage, I immediately award that person courage, and he will remain safe from that point on. Did you follow that? So want to try it? Want to say, sincerely surrender to Krishna, my dear Lord, from this day on, I am yours. I pray to you for courage. You've done that sincerely. It is Krishna's vow, Ramachandra's vow, to make sure from that point on you'll be safe. Of course we got to do our part. Of course we got to do our part to stay sincere. We got to do our sincere part. That's it. Just have to sincerely apply ourselves. We don't have to become super people. We don't have to be like Superman. No, just sincere. That's it. That's what I've taken shelter with, and I found it to work, because I'm not a Superman in any capacity. But I can just try to apply myself, sincerely. Anybody can do that. So just consistently do that, like in every circumstance. Let me be sincere here. Boom. And Krishna fully reciprocates with that. And you can't expect anything more. I mean, you're doing the best you can. That's perfect. Is that okay? Oh, sure.
Sometimes you have varieties.
Without the what?
You also need varieties.
Variety?
As you say, sometimes you go for appreciation, and I also go for
Well, Prabhupada did say variety is the spice of life. But, and that these both, because I've read it both different places. Mother enjoyment too, yeah, good. So, yeah, but we shouldn't be dependent on variety. I mean, it might be advanced enough just to do books every day of your life. The same place, the same time, it's the same people, in the same temple. Maybe it's a little advanced, but yeah. But if Krishna knows what you need, we don't want to be falsely in a situation. Krishna knows what we need. It'll work out. So I'm taking shelter of Krishna, it'll totally work out. Sure. But what I shared earlier is to appreciate. Always appreciate. Look at this right now. Every moment is now. Just think, this is Krishna's perfect gift for me. This is you and this situation and the way the temperature is and the way everything is a perfect gift for me from Krishna. Perfect. It couldn't get better. It's perfect. It's just what I need in order for me to make the next step in my Krishna consciousness. Huh? Always thinking that. And it states in the Bhagavatam, purport, Prabhupada writes, if you appreciate, then your spiritual potency increases. So why do we feel weak out there? Because our spiritual potency is decreasing. So when we don't appreciate, it's decreasing. So get in the habit of always appreciate, and the spiritual potency is always increasing. It's just a simple shift. This is a perfect gift. An ant just bit me. It's a perfect gift from Krishna. It's exactly what I needed. It couldn't be better. Whatever it is, somebody's chastising me. Instead of going, this ain't right. It's a perfect gift from me, from Krishna. Like that. Better way to go. Alright? Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go bring it up. I said exactly what I needed to hear.